this chapter, which is known as Akshara Brahma Yoga, is again another beautiful chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. You may think that this as a deviation from the standard topic we have been discussing so far, but yet this is an interesting topic. So let's do a quick introduction of this chapter, and we will see a couple of verses today, and then next week onwards we will continue with the other verses. This time I'm trying to be more systematic, so already the materials are there in the shared drive. I'll make sure that I'll keep a copy there. And Rajesh, please keep me on track with that.
Sure,
that would be
absolutely.
great.
Sure.
And then we will try to publish the video tomorrow itself so that you have everything.
Sure, absolutely.
So this is the plan. So let's start with the chapter 8. So as we discussed, the whole Bhagavad Gita is divided into 3 major sections. The first section, which is known as Tvampada, or the first Shatka of the Bhagavad Gita, the key focus of those chapters is the individual I. Who am I? What is my nature? What is the Atma? That is the main topic. So the Atma is elaborately discussed. And why I'm identifying with the other body, mind, and senses. And what is the means for me to realize that Atma? So we talked about the nature of the Atma in the second chapter. We talked about the yoga exhaustively. The second chapter gave the first introduction of yoga. 3, 4, 5, and 6, we talked about the yoga in detail. Both Karma Yoga and Upasana Yoga was introduced on chapter 6. And we saw that chapter 7, actually we are turning the corner. So after discussing the nature of Atma, after discussing the Karma Yoga and Upasana Yoga as a means of purifying and stabilizing myself so that this knowledge is going to work in me, we moved into chapter 7. The chapter 7 onwards, the key focus is shifted from the individual I to Ishvara, the Lord of the universe. So the 7th chapter, it was an aha moment for me when I studied the 2nd chapter, because it was completely redefined my ideas about the God. Because most of the people say that I don't believe in God. The problem is what they are not believing in is their concept of the God. The 7th chapter gave us a beautiful concept. Conceptual foundation of God. What is the higher nature of God, right? We saw that there are 2 natures of Ishvara, or the God, or the absolute reality. One is called the Paraprakriti, which is the absolute nature, which is beyond form, names, everything, which is changeless, which is timeless, which is beginningless, which is endless. So we saw that, what exactly is the nature of that. And then we saw that there is a lower nature of the Ishvara, which is the immanent part. So there is a transcendent nature and there is an immanent nature. So we saw that. And in that immanent nature, what happens? It is the universe we experience in front of us. So we saw that what are the basic elements that constitutes the entire universe. We saw that the combination of these material objects, when it is enlivened by the consciousness, the whole universe becomes dynamic. We saw that Jiva Bhuta Mahabhago. So Krishna says, in the form of life, I connects the entire universe. So we saw that. And we saw that if you think that Ishvara is completely away from me, just open your eyes and look around you. You won't miss me, right? So he said, wherever you see a glory in the nature, it is my expression. Rasohamapsya kaunteya. Prabhasmi shashisuryayo. If you remember, we saw that. So the taste of the water, the wetness of the water, the light of the sun, right? Pranava Sarva Vedeshu, wherever the scriptures, God is involved, whether it is in a temple, church, or mosque, anywhere the God is involved, you can see me there. Shabda Ke Paurusham, the manliness of the man, the womanliness of the women, right? all that we saw, right? And the strength of the strong, the intelligence of the intellect. Wherever you see some manifestation of glory, it is my nature. This is what Krishna explained. So this is the second pada, and chapter 8 happened to be the second chapter in that Shatka, where again the key focus is Ishvara. So this is the introduction, and on the third section, which is from chapter 13 to 18, the key focus is the relationship between the individual Atma and Supreme Ishvara. We saw that it is nothing but the individual Atma is the absolute reality, Ishvara. So that connection is there, so that we are going to see in the third pada. So the Gita is divided into three major sections. The first section is known as Tvam-pada, second section is known as Tat-pada, and the third section we can call it as Asi-pada. People don't call it, but that is what it is. So the first part focuses on the individual, second part focuses upon the absolute reality or the Ishvara, and the third part is the connection between these two. And what we are going to see today is chapter 8, which is known as Akshara Brahma Yoga. That is the name of the chapter. Akshara, Chara means what? Anybody? That which is subjected to decay. That is what is Chara. So what is Akshara?
Imperishable.
Imperishable, right. That means the literal meaning is that which is not subjected to decay. So double negative. That is the Sanskrit style. Typically when you study grammar, double negative is not good. But in Sanskrit you could see a lot. Amala, Akshara, all these things are formed in that way. So Akshara is imperishable. Brahman means reality. So it is the yoga of imperishable reality. So a couple of points here, okay? So this is the second chapter of the Tvam, means the Tatpada. Then this chapter is known as Akshara Brahma Yoga. It is also known as Taraka Brahma Yoga. There are two names. If you really look at the name of the chapter, it is known as Akshara Brahma Yoga. But a lot of commentators call this as Taraka Brahma Yoga. So have you heard of this mantra, Taraka mantra? The definition of Taraka mantra means if a mantra helps you to cross over the samsara. What is samsara? Samsara means the problems of the world, not the world, the problem imposed by the world, right? So that is what is samsara. So a mantra that helps you to cross the problems of the world, all the suffering, and that mantra is known as Taraka mantra. There are two popular mantras known as Taraka mantra. Most importantly, the Pranava mantra or the Om is known as Taraka mantra, because the Om mantra always helps us to cross the samsara, and that is what is Taraka mantra. Another popular name is what? Those who knows the Carnatic music, they know. Taraka Nama Rama. The name Rama is known as Taraka mantra. Ramante iti Rama, right? That mantra which gives me immeasurable joy. It just rejuvenates me. It just keeps me always happy. So it keeps me out of the suffering. That is what is Rama's mantra. So Taraka Nama Tyagarajarchita, right? So this is Shirasagara Shayana. If you look at that Kirtana, you can hear this. So this is what it is. There are two mantras which is known as Taraka mantra. One is Rama's name, other one is Om. But here in this chapter, Om Upasana is indicated. And that is why this chapter is known as Taraka Brahma Yoga. So this is the two names used. So here Om is the Taraka mantra, and therefore Omkara Upasana is highlighted. And this Omkara, because of that, this chapter is also known as Taraka Brahma Yoga. So Akshara Brahma Yoga or Taraka Brahma Yoga. And this predominant topic of this chapter is Upasana of the Ishvara, right? Earlier the Upasana was what? Upasana is a broader topic. So what is the purpose of the Upasana? The purpose of the Upasana is to make sure that I have a stable mind. In his commentary, Swami Dayananda Saraswati spent pages after pages of this chapter. Means for this chapter, he spent a lot of time in explaining what exactly is the two obstacles one needs to manage before one comes to the teachings of the Vedanta. One is called Mala Nivrittihi, or which is the removal of all the impurities. And the second one is, anybody? Vikshepa Nivritti, which is known as the stability of the mind. First one is known as purity of the mind, and the second one is the stability of the mind. So we need to be very clear. The purpose of the Upasana Yoga is mainly to purify the mind. This Drishtaphala of the Upasana Yoga is to purify the mind. I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Nobody caught it. It is for the stability of the mind. Purification is for Karma Yoga, right? So the Karma Yoga will purify the mind, whereas the Upasana Yoga is going to stabilize the mind. So this is, Upasana is given a lot of importance. And one of the most lingering questions most of you may have will be addressed here. What happens to a person after death? So that topic also comes here. Any questions? Okay. So this chapter has 5 major topics. So from verse 1 to 4, it's always a continuation from the previous chapter, because the 28th, 29th and 30th verses of the 7th chapter, Krishna introduced or at least used some technical terms like Brahman, Adhyatma, Atma, Karma, Adibhuta, Adideva, Adiyajna. All these terms were introduced. So Arjuna immediately asked a question, because the problem is this Vedic literature is so vast. So depending upon the context, these words can be interpreted in different ways. So Arjuna wanted to make sure that as a sincere student, in what context Krishna is using these terminologies. So he asked that question first. The first 4 verses is the explanation of these words, these technical terms. The first 2 verses, Arjuna asked the question, and then the second 2 verses, Krishna answers the questions. He defined these terms: Brahman, Adhyatma, Karma, Adibhuta, Adideva, and Adhiyajna. These words are asked and explained. And then Arjuna asked a question: what is the significance, or is it possible for anybody to remember Ishvara at the time of the death? Remember, Krishna said, like in the 6th chapter, if you are predominantly focused on these sadhanas, what happens? Your next birth will be predominantly limited by the karmas you do in this birth. So typically what happens? Your next birth is determined from the karma, from the global Sanchita karma pool. So what happens? Even though I might be a good person in this life, but I might have done so many bad things in the past. So my next birth might be, the karmas of this life might be watered down by the accumulation of the papa karmas I have done in the past. So, but if you predominantly do the karma in this life, what is going to happen? Your next life will be predominantly contributed or a weighted averaged by the karmas of this life. And Arjuna had a question. So is it possible, like at the time of death? Yes, I can understand. While alive, one can think about Ishvara. Is it practically possible for anybody to think about Ishvara at the time of death? So that question is asked. This led to a lot of misinterpretation. One good example is, some people think that you can do any nonsense while you're alive. But at the time of death, what you need to do? Think about Ishvara. You will be saved. And such people always quote a story from Bhagavad. Anybody knows which story it is?
Yeah, there was a story wherein a person dying,
Ajamala.
his son, has the god's name, and he took his son's name.
I told you the real story, right? That is only a partial story in Bhagavad. So this Ajamala, there was a person He was a good spiritual person in the beginning, but in between he got corrupted. He started doing every nonsense activities, enjoyed. He had like everything, extramarital affairs, all these type of cheatings and everything he had done. And one day he realized it is the time of his death. And he saw these Yamakinkaras coming to get hold of him. So he saw when these means the soldiers of Yama coming to get him, he got afraid. And he called his son's name Narayana. Just because he didn't call Mahavishnu, mind you. He just called Narayana. And who was Narayana? Narayana was his son. So when he called Narayana, what happened? Vishnu means the soldiers of Vishnu also came there. And there was a big debate between Yamakinkaras and Vishnu Kinkaras. And finally, Vishnu Kinkaras took him to Vaikuntha. That is the story. That is a popular story. So what is the moral people derive out of it? What is the intelligent living? Why should I waste 80 years or 60 years or 70 years of my lifetime in sadhanas? I can do all nonsense. At the end, I just need to just name your child as Ishwara's name and call the child. That's good enough. That's not the story. The story tells, right? It was a dream of Ajamala. After the scene, the next scene in the Bhagavata is Ajamala just wakes up. It was a dream. And after that dream, he changed. So that's what the misinterpretation is. But when we go to this chapter, those verses, you will understand what exactly is this concept. And then verse 15 to 22, you see a comparison between two types of goals. One is the spiritual goal and the other one is material goal. So that is highlighted in these verses. And then there are two paths. One is called the bright path, other one is dark path. Shukla Paksha and Krishna Paksha. Again, once you die, like which path you take. A lot of you are interested in this topic, I know that. You might have heard of this Krishna Paksha and Shukla Paksha. Or the path of Krishna means dark. Shukla means white. That's what it is. So there is a topic about this also. And finally, the glory of Upasana is highlighted. So this is the essence of this chapter. And you can see this chapter, honestly speaking, as a deviation from the major topic. Like it's a sidebar. Krishna means Arjuna's question is taking a tangent. Typically that happens, right? You're in a meeting, somebody takes a tangent. So Krishna answers and he just brings back to him to the actual topic in the 9th chapter. But this chapter, the topic is interesting. So we'll try to see this. Any questions? Somebody asked me these questions. So I told them like we will answer these questions when we come to 6th chapter. So we will discuss this topic. Any other questions? Otherwise, before we get chanting, when starting, like let's listen to the chanting of this chapter, to the verse. So we will see a couple of verses, and from this chapter onwards, actually based on the feedback only, we can keep 10 minutes for some open discussions. So anybody typically I talk. So anybody wants to add anything or at least share what they understood, that would be great because that will help you to reinforce your learning. So please feel free. We are a closed group. We are all friends. So even if it is mistake, that's fine. There is no mistake. We are going from like more correction. That's all. We are refining. So we will do that. And also any questions on the previous chapters or any other Vedanta topic, please bring up. We can try to answer if I know. Otherwise, I can come back and answer. So let's listen to the first verse once again. So I know, could you please chant?
Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha Atha Ashtamodhyayah Akshara Parabrahma Yogaha Arjuna Uvacha Kim tat brahma kimadhyatmam kim karma purushottama adhibhutam cha kim proktam adhidaivam kimuchyate.
Okay. So, 7th chapter, Krishna concluded by throwing out a lot of technical terms. Typically, what is the problem with the technical terms? I gave you that good old example. If you are a database professional, you talk about tables, keys, etc. An ordinary layman hearing this, what does he think about a physical table and key? So it's important that whenever we talk about a technical term, you wanted to make sure that that clarity is there. And the problem with these words is, unfortunately, Sanskrit is a context-sensitive language. The word Atma, we know that means we try to use Sachidananda Atma, we try to put a qualifier in. Otherwise, the same Atma is used sometimes for the Sachidananda Atma or the Paramatma. Sometimes it is used to indicate the mind. Sometimes it is used to indicate even the body. So depending upon the context, the meaning varies. So since Krishna put these terms out, Arjuna wanted to know what exactly is the context? What exactly is the meaning he is indicating? So you may wonder, right, why karma? Because the word karma itself has different meaning in different context. The word dharma has different meaning in different context. So is Brahman. So Arjuna wanted to be very clear. So he asked the question. So Kim Tad Brahma? Tat means that. So what is that Brahman you are talking about? We are going to talk a little bit more in the upcoming slides. But first, let's understand the literal meaning. What is that Brahman you are talking about? Then Adhyatma. What is that Atma? The Atma that is centered in you. Adhyatma, the Atma that is dependent on you, means you are dependent upon. What is that Adhyatma? What is that Brahman? And so Kim Karma? What is karma? Because we have been hearing from karma from 2nd chapter onwards. Is that the same karma you're talking? Or is that something different? So what is Brahman? What is Adhyatma? And what is karma? Oh Purushottama. What is Purushottama? Uttama in Sanskrit means what? Anybody?
Very good person.
Yeah, noble person, good person. Purusha Uttama means what? The noble person or the refined, most refined among the Purushas. But here the meaning is different. Krishna is, or means the person you are talking is not an ordinary person. He is the absolute reality. Krishna is not talking here as Mr. Krishna, as we discussed in the previous class, previous chapter. Krishna is talking here as the ultimate authority of the universe. He is the absolute reality, right? Remember that lucid dream example we talked about earlier? So even though he is in the dream world or he is in this world, when I say dream, don't think that the world is a dream. Not at all. It's an example. So imagine that you are in a dream, but you know that you're dreaming. That is what is the lucid dream is. So if you know that your real identity, that is what Krishna is referring to here, being referred here. So Purushottama means the supreme person beyond which there is nothing more. So that Purushottama. So Kim Tad Brahma Kimathyatmam, Kim Karma Purushottamaha. So O Purushottama, O the ultimate source of the universe, O who knows everything in the universe, right? You don't, there is nothing beyond you. So what is that Brahman you are talking? What is that Adhyatma you are talking? And what is the karma you have been talking? Then he tells Adibhutam cha, means Adibhuta. So Adibhuta, what is the Adibhuta? Bhuta means beings, right? All the beings. What is that Adhishtana or the center of all bhutas? And Proktam and then Ati Devam cha Uchyate. What is that is known as Ati Devam? Devam means deity. So what is the center around all the deities? Like when you see the sun, when you see the phenomenal forces, what is that Adhisthana of all that? This is Arjuna's questions. So in the first verse, how many questions are there? What is Brahman? What is Athyatma? What is Karma? What is Adibhuta? What is Adideva? 5 questions were asked in the first verse. Okay. Arjuna. So this is what it is. Kim tad brahma kim athyatmam kim karma purushottama adibhutam cha kim proktam. Right? Adidevam kim uchyate. So what is Brahman? What is Atma? What is Karma? O Krishna or O Purushottama? What is said about the world? Adibhutam, meaning all the beings, and Adidevam, what is about all the deities. So let's listen to the next verse also, and then we'll consolidate all the 6 questions.
Adhiyajñah katham kotra dehesmin madhusudana prayana kale cha katham yeyosi niyatatmabhihi. So
we heard 5 questions in the previous verse. Now he adding on top of that. He tells Ati Yajñam. Yajña, we saw that in the 3rd chapter. So what is the Adhisthana of Yajña in an individual? Dehe. So in this body, what is the Adhisthana of the Yajña? We will elaborate that a little bit more. So then Madhusudana, Krishna is addressed with another name. Why Krishna is known as, means 2 names are used. One is Purushottama, second one is Madhusudana. So Purushottama, I said, like, means that which is the ultimate Purusha, or the source of the universe, or the foundation of the universe. That is what is Purushottama. Madhusudana, what is the literal meaning? The one who destroyed Madhu. What is the Puranic story? Anybody knows that? Why Vishnu is known as Madhusudana?
I think he killed Rakshasa.
Yeah, there were 2 demons as per the Puranas, Vishnu Purana. One is called Madhu and the other one is called, anybody? Kaitaba. So he destroyed these 2 and restored the world, or saved the world, and that is why it is known as Madhusudana. But I think I already explained to you, right? In the 7th chapter we saw who is an Asura. Asura is a tendency within us which will force us to get addicted to sense organs. And what is Madhu represents? There are 2 symbolic meaning for the word Madhu. Madhu, a literal meaning of Madhu is what?
Honey.
Honey, right? Honey is known as Madhu. What is the characteristics of honey?
Sweet.
Sweet and sticky.
Yeah.
Right? You get stick. It means stick in the honey. It has a paste, glue effect. So typically Madhu symbolically represents the karmas or the worldly actions, right? So you go and drink something, means you started drinking one day, next day you will do it. Over a period of time, what happens?
Becomes
Initially you got drinks, finally
becomes a habit.
The drinks got us. So in our Upanishad, there is a brilliant simile given. A fly comes and starts licking the honey. Initially, the fly enjoyed the honey. Over a period of time, after some times, what happened? The fly suddenly realized that even if it wants to get out of the honey pot, it cannot. Why?
Stuck to it now.
Stuck, it got sticked. So this karma or the obsessions are represented as Madhu. So Madhusudana means what? He who can save you or get you out of this bondage of honey is known as Madhusudana. Make sense?
Yeah.
We need to understand the meaning. Like Vishnu Sahasranama is a fantastic book which gives the meanings of each of these names. So Madhusudana has to be understood like this. Then only it makes sense. Otherwise, what happens? God do not have any business but kill all these asuras. That's what you think. So the other means when we did the last sessions, I explained the significance of Hiranyaksha. Who is Hiranyaksha? Right? Hiranya means gold, Aksha means eye. So a materialistic tendency. Anything you see only the profit. What am I going to get out of it? So the Lord will help us to destroy that attitude in us. So that is what is symbolically represented as killing of these demons. Once again, how does the Lord kill these asuras? Once again, remember that. If you remember that, the weapon of the Lord, that itself will tell you the story very clearly. What is the main weapon of Lord Vishnu?
The chakra.
Chakra. What is the name of the chakra?
Sudarshana.
Sudarshana. What does that mean?
Showing the way.
So how does he killed Madhu? How does he killed Hiranyaksha? Using Sudarshana. And what is Sudarshana? Darshana means what?
Right path.
Vision, right?
Yeah.
Vision means, Darshana means vision. Sudarshana means by showing them the right path. So that is what is the killing here means. Okay, so we need to be very clear, because otherwise people just abuses our culture, saying that your God doesn't have any business but to kill people. That's not what the truth is. So he tells, again coming back to the topic, so he tells what is Ati Yajna, what is the Athishtana in this body, right? Oh, the destroyer of the demon Madhu or the karmas. And then finally, the last question is a deviation from the topic. So the seventh question, up to sixth question, it is perfectly fine. When he tells Prayana Kale cha Katham. So Prayana Kale means what happens? Prayana Kale means at the time of death, at the time of departure. That's what it means. The permanent departure, not a temporary departure to somewhere, but the permanent departure. At the time of the permanent departure, what is going to happen? Meaning, what happened to a person? Niyata means the one who controlled his mind. So a person who has controlled his mind, what is going to happen, right? How a self-controlled person can keep his focus on you at the time of death. These are the 7 questions. So let's see the 7 questions once again. What is Brahman? What is the centered on the individual self or the Jivatma or the Adhyatma? What is karma? What is that centered on all the beings in the universe, which is known as Ati Bhudam? What is centered in all the deities, which is known as Ati Devam? And then what is centered on all the yajnas? And how is it possible for an individual to keep evenness at the time of the death? These are the 7 questions asked by Arjuna. So let's spend another 5 minutes and then we go to the open discussion. Have you heard of Brahman? Can anybody tell me what is your understanding of Brahman? Before Krishna answers, let's try to answer a little bit. What is Brahman?
Is it Nirakara, Nirguna?
Right, but what exactly it is? Space also is Nirakara and Nirguna. So we cannot call space as Brahman, right? Brahman is much beyond that. So Brahman is literally means what? Brihi Vruthai, that which is the biggest, which is the absolute reality of the universe. So what is Krishna meant by Brahman here? That is the first question. Then Atma. What is Atma? Me, right? Who am I? Ati Atma, right? What exactly is the entity where I should identify myself? Is that my body? Is that my mind? What exactly is that entity? So we talked about this a lot. Who am I? So typically what happens, you have, means we saw this in the second chapter in detail. Every jiva, every individual has three dimensions. One is a physical dimension. The second one is a subtle dimension, the physical body, the subtle body, and there is something called Atma or the consciousness. So mind you, I already warned you, like the definition of consciousness in Vedanta is different from the different definition of consciousness in the neuroscience. So the neuroscience, you will see consciousness as an attribute of the mind. Here our definition is slightly different. We define consciousness as like that by which you are aware of your thoughts. That is what the consciousness is. So what is that consciousness by which you are aware of your thought? And an indirect question of Arjuna is, what is the connection between the absolute reality, the Brahman, and the consciousness in me? So that is what these questions imply. So what is Brahman, which is the driver or the subtractum of the universe? And Atma can be considered as what is the subtractum of an individual. So the essence of an individual is known as Atma. The essence of the entire cosmos is known as Brahman. And is there any connection between these two? This is what Arjuna was asking. And what is karma? What is the karma from a macro perspective? We have seen karma from a micro perspective already. So karma from a micro perspective, we defined it as that means any activities you do with a karana is known as karma. By the way, what is karana?
Hands.
Karana means it is an instrument. So there are, how many karanas are there? If you remember, 11 karanas are there, right? So you have your body, you have your, means the 5 organs of perception, you have 5 organs of action, and you have the inner instrument, which is called the mind, intellect, everything put together. So 11 karanas are there. So any action you perform with any of the karana is known as a karma. That is what is one definition of karma. Second definition of karma is what? The result you acquire, right? When you perform an action, the karma you acquire. We talked about this in detail. We had a offline topic called karma, right? The theory of karma. So the every karma produces a direct result called drishtam and an indirect result called adrishtam. And these karmas will be accumulated in the form of agami karma, sanchita karma, and what else?
Prarabdha karma.
Prarabdha karma, exactly. So these different buckets the karma will accumulate. So in this particular context, what exactly is the usage of karma? So karma is anything you do with the karana is karma. So what is the context here? Then adibhudam. Bhudam means what? So we heard in the 7th chapter, Krishna defines the bhutas. What is the bhutas? Definition of the apara prakriti is known as bhuta. So apara prakriti is what? Bhumi rapo nalo vayuhu kam mano buddhi revacha ahankaramidiyam me pinnaha prakriti ashtata. The 5 great elements. The solid, the liquid, the matter, the plasma, and the space. And the subtle elements. What are the subtle elements? Mind, buddhi, and the ego, right? The mind, intellect, and the ego. The combination of this is the entire universe. And what is the adhishtan of all these? That is adibhudam. Adi Devam means Devam means what? Here it is. Deva means what? That which shines. So it can be, it is the phenomenal forces of the universe, right? You can see that there is a law in almost all the phenomena. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. There is a beautiful book if you want to read. It is known as The Big History. The big history, this book gives an account of the universe, right? It is the history of the universe. That is what is the big history. It starts from Big Bang and it comes all the way up to now. So this book clearly tells what are all the phenomenal forces that operates in the nature. So what is the Adhisthana of all these phenomenal forces of the nature? So that is Adhidevam. And Yajna, what is Yajna? Any offering to Ishvara. That is what the simple definition of Yajna. Any offering to Ishvara. So what is Adhiyajna? Like within your system, right? In the 4th chapter we saw. In the 4th chapter, we have seen that every action you do, Krishna is trying to convert that into an yajna. So any action which is not tamasic, any action which is offered as an offering to Ishvara, that becomes yajna. So the famous verse in the 4th chapter tells Brahmarpanam Brahmahavihi, Brahmapno Brahmanahudam. Even the food you eat, that can be considered as a yajna. Like everything is visualized as a yajna, right? Your breathing is considered as a yajna. Your prayer is considered as a yajna. Everything, even your sleep is considered as an yajna. So every action you do can be considered as a worship. So what is that entity that receives all the worship you do with your system? That is Adhiyajna. And finally, he tells, how is it possible to keep this evenness of the body? Because you are talking about yoga, means the definition of yoga is yoga, samatvam yoga uchyate, samatha vachala buddhi tata yoga mahapsasi. Arjuna feels that is perfect. You can do, somehow you can do that while alive. But at the time of death, who cares about the evenness of the mind? You would be scared. So how is it possible? How is it possible to keep evenness of mind at the time of death? This is the theme of this entire chapter. So let me do a quick recap. So we started this 8th chapter. 8th chapter is the 2nd chapter in the 2nd Shatka of the Gita. The key topic is again the nature of Ishvara. And Ishvara Upasana is the key topic. This chapter has around a few different topics. The chapter opens up with a key question from Arjuna. And we saw 7 questions today. And these are the 7 questions. What is Brahman? What is Adhyatma? What is Karma? What is Adibhutam? What is Adidevam? What is Adhiyajna? And how is it possible to keep the evenness of the mind at the time of death? This is what the first two verses. So any questions or comments, or anybody wants to share anything? Because this is a beautiful chapter, a totally different topic, a topic a lot of people are interested, especially what happens after death. And another interesting topic that is going to come in this chapter is there are 2 types of mukti, or the moksha we talk in our scriptures. One is called the Jivan Mukti and the other one is called the Krama Mukti. Jivan Mukti means you're getting liberated while you're alive. And Krama Mukti means it is a 2-stepped process. What is that? That also comes in this chapter. Any comments or any questions?
Sadhya Mukti is same as Jivan Mukti here.
What is that?
Sadhyaha Mukti. Sadhya Mukti or something like that.
I haven't heard that term. Punaji, have you heard of that term? No. Okay, yeah. Let me take it back. I haven't heard that term. I only heard about these 2 terms. One is Jivan Mukti or Krama Mukti. Or
when Krama Mukti is there, usually they compare Krama Mukti with Sadhya Mukti. I heard something like that, but I could be wrong.
No, there could be, you can use synonyms. Probably you might mean there could be some terms. I'll go back and check. Okay. Any other comments? But the framework is clear, right? The overall framework is clear. This is the second topic of the Gita. The key focus is Ishvara. Ishvara Upasana is the topic. Why do we need Upasana Yoga? Because without Upasana Yoga, you cannot get the stability of the mind. And that is why Arjuna is asking, right? At the time of death, how is that stability possible? So Krishna is going to explain all that.
Yeah, I'm glad
Um,
Arjuna asked.
Rajesh, I was just checking on that Sadhya Mukti. It says pure bhakti.
Okay, so
When a person tries to attain the goal of pure bhakti, which is Satya Bhava, that's what. But I haven't heard that term though.
yeah, I'll check. It might be a Bhakti literature term. I haven't heard that in the Vedantic terminologies, but I will go back and refer Ratnakarji. But thanks, Bhunaji.
Yeah, I'm glad Arjuna asked all these questions for all of us. Actually.
That's the beauty of Bhagavad Gita, right? Typically, I always remember like the third chapter. That was my biggest question when I studied the second chapter. But when I came to the third chapter, that's exactly what is being asked. Several times you would see our questions are being raised by Arjuna. That's the brilliance of Vyasa, right? That is why Namostute Vyasa, what do you call?
Namosthanandai.
Vishala Buddhi. One with vast intellect. That's the beauty, like Vyaso Chishtam Jagat Sarvam. Everything, nobody can create anything new which was not conceived by Vyasa. I'm reading this Mahabharata. Unbelievable. It's just you have to close the book and just salute Vyasa. That depth is going. Imagine how many characters, how many types, how much elaborations, right? One person thinking through everybody's mind is mind-boggling. Any other questions or comments? Please feel free to discuss, because that's how you also becomes clear. Like when you start talking, participating in this group discussion, it'll be great.
So the answers for all the 7 questions are given in this chapter, or more questions?
That is the theme of this chapter. That's it. So the interesting thing is that 2 verses he answered the first 6 questions because it was already answered. He will just clarify the context. But the last one is a tricky question. So that's where he spent most of the time. Okay.
So I always wonder, because I don't know what your answer is going to be, but at the time of departure, what is the mental state of a person, right? How do you be calm? Like, so I was just wondering, the people who go on coma and people who are on, painkillers like morphines and all, where will they remember to think of God at that point?
We'll talk about that. We're going to discuss all that different scenarios.
Right.
Krishna talks about a little bit, but I really wanted to cover that part. When somebody is in coma, when somebody is in ICU, like right now, a lot of people, right? SPB just got out of the ICU, but what would have been his state? Well,
because he's not going to know, right? They'll be sedated. How much they will do, or your subconscious mind, does it work for you?
Yeah, actually, there's interesting people. There was a neurologist. I forgot his name. He wrote a book. The book is called Proof of Heaven. Proof of Heaven. This book, I'm not saying that to believe it, but those who are interested, a near-death experience he describes in that book. He's a scientist, not an ordinary person. He's a neurologist. So it's one of the bestsellers. But it's like a story. But you can, those who want to leave your hand, it's interesting read for you.
So should we check it out first, how the heaven is, before we start?
but
I'm being in the healthcare field, I can literally tell you, we always say patients, even if they are sleeping, not aware, but somehow they can hear.
Yeah.
They're always able to hear. So somehow I feel that they can think. It's not that they...
Exactly. And I was listening to one of the movie actors very recently, one Malayalam actor called Balachandra Menon. He was in a very critical state. He was saying that he was in a very, very, very serious state, lying down. His wife was calling. He was listening, like, and he said he could hear all the people. He was just saying that, so don't go there that this fellow is gone. He was joking, but
So that is why they put all this Vishnu Sahasranama and all this
Yeah.
recording so that, you know, their mind is calm and they think about the Bhagwan, right?
but the heaven, right? So means the means I'm very careful in using that terminology. The word heaven is totally different in our
Scriptures.
literature, right? It is not the Christian concept of heaven. Once you get in there like a permanent residence, you are done. That's not the idea. It is slightly different. It's another plane of existence, and that's what we are going to see. Like in the Krama Mukti, it is said that the soul. Remember the difference between soul and Atma. Atma is not the soul. Soul is the subtle body. The subtle body that travels from one body to the other. Those who believe in reincarnation, right? So the subtle body goes from before taking another body. Sometimes it manifests into a different plane of existence. And one such plane is called Brahmaloka. And that is what is there are two gatis we were talking. One is the Krishna gati, the other one is the Shukla gati. Right?
Shuklagati.
So if you go through that Shukla gati, what happens? Again, this is a matter of belief. I cannot prove it or disprove it. So we can just listen to this and yeah, if it makes sense, take it. Otherwise, it does. Even if you don't take it, still the Gita is whole true because
Yeah, but Bhishma waited to have it in the Suklagati, right?
yeah,
He waited for Uttarayanam to come.
yeah, that is again a different idea. Bhishma waited for Uttarayanam because that is the time, because that Uttarayana path is there, Dakshinayana path is there. We will talk to that.
Yeah, in this chapter, he talks about Dakshinayanam and Uttarayanam. So that's
Exactly.
why for those who are dying in the period of Krishna Paksham or this Dakshinayana time, is that bad or what?
But one more thing is that there. See, when Krishna tells, if you remember my name at the time of death, it is good. But he didn't say that just by remembering you will reach there. That's the point. That is very important. Shankaracharya highlights that. Okay, so we will see this more. Bonaji, if you could. Any other questions? I think we got extra time.
Yeah,
But
Rajesh, please can you repeat the name of the book?
which book? Which one?
You just mentioned this.
Proof of heaven.
Proof of Heaven.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
I'll share it in the drive.
My
Thank you
God.
so much.
Yeah, I have
You
it.
got
Yeah.
almost every book.
I have
I
the
don't
big
know.
history also, if anybody's interested.
Which one?
The big history.
Oh, you got the big history also. My
Yeah, I'll share it there.
You are a library, Rajesh ji.
That's okay. Thank you. No, I was just wondering. The heaven that he saw probably won't be the heaven that we'll see, right? I mean, our heaven has Indra and all those people and all the different gods and every, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
But in this book, right, he tells he listened to a sound which is Om.
oh, okay. So he went to the
Again, you cannot take this. I'm not saying that take this as an authority. I was just joking. Like I read it like a fiction, but since you asked, since somebody brought this idea, I read this book like 7-8 years back. So this was in my mind. I just incidentally said it. This is not a recommended book, just like I told about authentic happiness or destructive emotions or even big history. Those are scientific book. The beauty of the science is what? It is always validated with research. Nobody can validate his dreams. So, but I don't want to disprove him also. It is his experience. Take it from that perspective. That's it. Rohitji, you had a question.
Yeah, just quick question. Actually, it's for Anu. There were 3 verses that she recited before she recited the first verse of this chapter. What does that mean? Do you know?
Okay. So it is a chapter name.
Yeah.
Name 8th chapter, and it is called Akshara Parabrahma Yogaha Atha Ashtamodhyayaha. 8th chapter.
Atha means now. Ashtama means 8. Adhyayaha means chapter 8.
Okay, so it's like I'm reciting now the chapter.
This chapter. That's
so
what
now,
it is.
Adha means now. Atha is considered as an auspicious term, right? Athetyoyam adhikararthaha. Adhetyoyam mangalarthaha. So now means now after studying the 7 chapters, I'm going to study 8th chapter. And this word is known as like a auspicious beginning, just like doing a prayer, just like you saying Om. This word Atha is used. For example, all these sutra literature, you can see that it starts with Atha. Ate means Atha Yoganuशासनम, right?
Yes, so it's something that's recited at the beginning.
At the beginning, yeah. So every chapter starts with means Atha Prathamodhyayaha. And then before you do chanting, typically you say Om Paramatmane Namaha. Salutations to that Paramatma. And then at the end, there is a Charama Shloka. It tells like Om Tat Sat, Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su, Upanishatsu, Brahma Vidyayam, Yoga Shastre, Sri Krishna Arjuna Samvade, whatever chapter you are reciting, that chapter.
Completed.
Yeah, completed. So like it tells this Gita is an Upanishad, like an Upanishad. And the subject matter of the Gita is two. One is Brahma Vidya, which is the knowledge of the God or the absolute reality. And then Yoga Shastra, yoga. It is the practical means to achieve it. And then this Upanishad type subject matter or the body of knowledge, which has two aspects. One is the Brahma Vidya and the Yoga Shastra, is presented in the form of a dialogue, Sri Krishna and Arjuna. So that in that dialogue, this particular chapter comes to an end. That is the Charma Shloka.
Yeah, and you see that in every Gita book. So
every Gita book. And by the way, this is not part of the original Gita. Somebody compiled Gita later point of time. So they added these, even the chapter divisions.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yeah. This name of the chapters are given later.
Okay. Yeah, could be because Bhagwan is not going to make it like chapters, right? It can just
and also this is Mahabharata chapter 25 to Bhishma Parva chapter 25 to 43.
Thank you.
It's ocean, right? 700,000 verses. This 700 verses is nothing.
Correct.
Yeah. So Mahabharata means I already talked about Mahabharata, right? Three iterations. It is Jayam. Jayam turned into Bharatam, and the Bharatam turned into Mahabharatam. Vyasa, whatever he communicated to like Vaishampayana is what is Jayam. And fortunately, all these 700 verses of Gita, it is said that it is Vyasa's original words. Nobody added or edited that. And then this Jayam is retold by Vaishampayana to Janamejaya. It became Bharatam. So the 8,000 verses became 24,000 verses. And when actually one of the sage there was Lomapada or Suta or Ugreshravas, he retold this to the rishis in Dandakaranya forest. So that time, sorry, Naimisharanya forest. That is the time this actually Bharatam became Mahabharatam. 24,000 verses became 100,000 verses.
So that is Sudar telling all the rishis.
Suta telling, yeah. Suta means he's a professional storyteller.
Correct, but isn't he the same one who told Bhagavatam also?
No, it's Suta is a position name, like. So the
Suta Maharishi.
No, Suta Maharshi, like whoever, means let me check with Bhagavatam, but some other
Yeah,
Puranas,
because I just now told the stories of Bhagavatam to our children, and it says Sudar says. That's what it
Suta
says.
is same, but Suta is a generic name. It is used for all.
Oh no! Actually, Sukkar.
Shuka,
Shuka.
yeah. Shuka is different. Shuka is different.
The parrot faced is Shukar, right?
Shuka is the son of Vyasa.
Correct.
He is the one who studies. Suta is different. Suta means it is a professional storyteller, and he who gave this story is known as Ugrashravas. So whereas all the other Puranas were told by Loma Harshana. Loma Harshana is another disciple of Vyasa. I'll tell that story next week. How the different Puranas got spread and how all these things evolved. Okay. Any other questions? Sorry, means these are question answer sessions. Anybody wants to like break, they're free to break at 9:30. Sorry to take extra 10 minutes. But good questions. Thank you.